2025 is already over halfway finished. That is a somewhat humbling thought, but it does give us a great excuse to look back over the first half of this year and have a little look at some of the choice singles that have kind of struck me over the course of the year, the last 6 and a bit months. Of course, all of this stuff is going to be stuff that I have found personally. I'm sure there are plenty of amazing, objectively fantastic songs that I've never heard of or just weren't my thing. So obviously just reminding everybody, this is my personal list of top singles so far. So I have got 7. I was going through all the stuff I've got saved, all the singles, all the videos I've watched, all the albums I've gone through, and I've come up with 7 songs. I'm limiting myself to 1 song per artist, I think. Otherwise, there would be a sort of fairly heavy balance of a few bands like Viagra Boys and Ghost would probably be stopping up the list. So 1 song per band, and I've not ordered them yet. We'll kind of get to that, I guess, at the end of the year when I make a follow-up to this in December. But yeah, no, let's just jump in and have a little look and see what's taking me fancy, shall we? Don't know why I did that. Number 1, I have got Pyramid of Health by Viagra Boys.
Hanging out with the camera down my throat. They say my stomach's nearly fried from eating cigarettes for breakfast.
Man, I have had such a big arc of obsessing over Viagra Boys this year. All of the singles from their album Viagra Boys that came out this year were great. Pyramid of Health was not a single that got released beforehand, so I don't know whether or not there's maybe a little bit of recency bias in there for me, because I obsessed over Bog Body and Uno 2 and Man Made of Meat like a lot as they were coming out, so they were less of a novelty. So Pyramid of Health was my favorite one from the album, I think. It's just got this wonderfully dry, I mean, admittedly, this is a trait of all Viagra Boy stuff, but it's got this wonderfully dry delivery, these sarcastic lyrics, just the way he kind of sings about these scenarios, like being, you know, in a desert on a boat somewhere and some guy's yelling in his ear about eating cactuses for breakfast. Like, it's so creative in the imagery that he manages to create with this stuff. Seb is a wordsmith, and I don't even think he realizes just how good of a wordsmith he actually is. Like, in a couple of interviews I've seen with Justin Hawkins and stuff like that, and Justin Hawkins was asking him about, well, I think it was specifically about Man Made of Meat, and he was like, there was no significance to it. I just like saying the phrase "man made of meat," and then the stuff kind of came later.
Was it important to gender the thing, or could it have been personal?
You know, that whole, like, that line was just some, because, like, when I write a song, like, it's usually, like, we have, like, a riff, and I'll just, like, say some stupid shit over it. And it's usually some stupid shit that I like the way it sounds. It might not even have to have a lot of meaning.
It's such a, like, wonderfully ad hoc, creative, like, you can tell it comes from the soul, but it's mixed with this, like, great, janky guitar line. The sort of synth stuff in the background is really fantastic. Like, when the whole band kind of kicks in after the intro, you've got this kind of like pulsing sort of brass section and keyboard stuff which comes in there and kind of provides this like really widening sound to what is otherwise a fairly kind of traditional, kind of quite treble heavy guitar line. I really, really like it. Let's have a listen to that intro for a sec.
The Pyramid of Health.
It's got this such unique jankiness to it, but it's still so, like, together, everyone is so good at their instruments. Viagra Boys are fantastic. That album is amazing. If you haven't listened to it, you should really go and check out the Viagra Boys' new album. I saw them on tour, like, a couple of months ago, and they were fantastic. I've got nothing but amazing stuff to say about Viagra Boys. So moving on to my next one, again, no particular order, but on this playlist, I've got Walking Through Fire from The Darkness, from their album Dreams on Toast that came out this year. And again, that's another one where I didn't obsess ahead of time, actually. I listened to I Hate Myself when that came out, and I really liked that one. I actually missed the single Rock and Roll Party Cowboy, so my girlfriend is really into The Darkness, especially when she was a kid, so she was quite excited. So I don't know what fully motivated me to do it, but I did end up just jumping and listening through the entirety of Dreams on Toast. And again, just like the Viagra Boys, that album is amazing. Every single track on it is good. It's got this great kind of self-deprecation to it. It sort of sounds like it's Justin Hawkins telling the tale of his kind of like life collapsing through bad decisions, but still sort of like trying to find redemption afterwards and sort of throwing himself into his work, stuff like that. It's a very surprisingly poignant album considering how silly on the surface a lot of those songs are. But my highlight from that album is absolutely Walking Through Fire. There's a couple of really good competitors, but that one is the one I just keep on coming back to. To start with, the lyrics again have got this wonderful sad. Like this one's about how they've kind of like lost cultural relevance, but you know, they're just kind of still doing rock and roll for the love of the game. And there's a couple of really choice extracts. Like there's the bit where he's talking about at the beginning, but literally in the opening section where he's talking about how he's not even sure that his mum listened to the last album that came out.
We're only doing this 'cause it's fun. Don't even think my mom bought the last one.
And then there's an interlude later on in the song where, again, he's using that wonderful falsetto that could almost cross the line of being silly, but it's just so well executed. That guy's voice is so amazing that lyric that he says, you know, we never stopped making hit albums, it's just that no one buys them anymore. Which again is like quite a sad statement, really, but the redemption of the song is this whole walking through fire, just loving rock and roll. The chorus is so anthemic with that lead guitar line. It's got some very Guns N' Roses influences in it, I think. There's that lead line, that da-na-na-na, I can't help, and the way that it all kind of opens up there, and then the backing vocals across the board. I mean, I imagine it's probably Justin doing most of them, at least in the recordings, but the backing vocals that are so great. These guys have been masters of their craft for a while, but it just feels like at this point they're veterans, and this song is an amazing example of that. It's very kind of glam rock, like a lot of the songs on this album really do span a lot of different sort of genres or subgenres of rock and roll, kind of mostly in the classic, but there's a lot of variation there, and this one I think is kind of got that most kind of glammy kind of 80s vibe to it, which I really, really like. So yeah, check out the album again, and also yeah, really make sure to check out Walking Through Fire. That song is amazing. Moving on to number 3, we've got Abracadabra by Lady Gaga. A song I really did not expect to get so hooked by. I've always had time for Lady Gaga, like, as an entity. I've always found her to be kind of like creative and innovative and kind of not a sort of pop shill. She seems like she does what she wants to, and she's, yeah, I don't know, I have a lot of time for her. I quite like her as an actress. She is not the reason Joker 2 is bad. She's even got a part in Machete 2. So I just chucked on Abracadabra because also her music video is really good. So I did a reaction to that, which you can find on this here channel if you like. And I was just so taken by it. To start with, the video itself is so visually rich. There are some crazy dances going on. I do not know how much longer Lady Gaga is going to be able to move like that, because it's like violent in the way she moves her body and her entire entourage in that thing. The costumes are fantastic. It's a very visually gripping music video. And then as for the song itself, to start with, the chorus is just awesome. It's got this really powerful blasted out abracadabra, and then it kind of falls into these really fun nonsense words. Well, they're not nonsense words, actually. I think it's mostly Latin, if I'm not mistaken. I think in fact somebody corrected me in the comment section of my video on this. We've got abracadabra amor unana, abracadabra morta ugaga. Abracadabra abra unana, in her tongue she said death or love tonight, which is kind of cool. I really like that it's talking about this character, and I believe death or love tonight is somewhat what she said. I can definitely pull out words I do know, like amor is obviously like closer to amore, so that's love. Morta is definitely to do with death, etc, etc. So it's the imagery, the sort of verbal imagery that creates is really great, and again the delivery is fantastic. But one of the things I really like about that song is it's got this really amazing throwback, like kind of 80s pop Madonna feel to it, just in the instrumentation a lot. There's a couple of guitar lines that kind of run through it that have got, they really make me think of Madonna. And I don't know if you know me well, you will know that I am quite a big Madonna fan. I grew up on that shit. I really like most Madonna songs I know, so that being kind of like a reference I can pull from it obviously adds more enjoyment to it. There were some bits on my first listen I wasn't so keen on. The kind of like chanting section where it goes abracadabra, abracadabra. I didn't like that so much to start with. I think it's because the backing turns a little bit more kind of clubby, like noughties pop for a second. But over time, I've grown to really like it because it does really kind of root it, because the rest of it's so fluid. To have that like kind of slowed down, kind of really impactful staccato section actually really does service the song a lot. So yeah, no, I've completely come around to that, and that whole song. I've not really listened to much other stuff from the more recent Lady Gaga releases. There was one other one I made a video on, which I was less taken by, if I'm not mistaken. Disease, I think it was. Disease was alright. I didn't mind it, but I didn't latch on. Oh, and Die With a Smile is on this one too, which I actually recorded a reaction to, and then I bungled up the recording and ended up rage quitting. Abracadabra, Lady Gaga. I actually think I might go and check that album out. I've not listened to the entire thing. If there's other stuff on there that's like Abracadabra, it may even get itself in, contention for my favorite albums of the year. Moving on to number 4, Lacrima from Skeletor by Ghost, which came out this year. Another amazing album the whole way through. I've made several videos covering them. I've talked ad nauseum about Ghost. I've been a big Ghost fan for a while, if you couldn't tell. Lacrima was the second single that got released prior to the album, sort of like fully releasing, and the more I listen to that song, the more I think it might be just one of the best Ghost songs ever, full stop, not just the best song on Skeletor. And there's a lot of great songs on Skeletor. I like some of them more than others, but I really fell in love with Umbra. That's a particularly good track as well. Peacefield's amazing. Satanized I almost put that instead of Lacrima. That chorus, the way he falls into that dying, it's just so gorgeous. Those harmonies, the way that it falls into it, and the way that it kind of he gets this big sweep down the dying, and then you get this elatory over someone like you. The melody is just everywhere, and it's fantastic. And also the music video I've got very fondly latched into my brain as well, just seeing the new Papa in his kind of full glory. He's not wearing the papal robes, but he's got what I've been referring to as his used car salesman attire on, and he's just so charismatic. You actually see Tobias Forge's mouth articulating the stuff that he's saying, which is amazing. So visually, I've got a strong, pleasant attachment to that one. Just, yeah, I don't know, just the way that song is structured is so chef's kiss. I'm not going to labor too much more on that one because I have got an entire video on that on this channel if you want to go and check that one out too. Moving on to number 5, one I don't think I've really spoken about on this channel yet, and that is You Should Not Be Doing That by Amon and the Sniffers. A band that I did not expect to like. I saw, I think half a live video, it got recommended to me, and I was like, I'm not sure. It's okay punk with a girl kind of screeching over the top, and it feels a little bit kind of theatric for the sake of it without much substance. But then, I don't know why, it just kind of got fed into my my feed a couple of times, and I ended up getting really, really obsessed with this one song specifically. I've not dived too far into the rest of the Amon and the Sniffers catalog. I think I only know one other song, to be fair. But there's a combination to start with. I'm going to play it now, but the chord change in the verses, I think there's a suspended fifth or something like that. Someone who knows music theory better than me can tell me, that goes in between those two chord changes. It's what I call a music-gasm. It's just those little moments somewhere just sprinkled around all the music you ever listen to, and just some of those songs have those little moments where you just give a shiver. I listen to the entire song again and again and again because I want to hear that section in situ. It's that chord change with the little suspension in there is so good. And over time, I've now grown to actually really like Amel's vocal delivery too. The lyrics are kind of tongue-in-cheek and silly, but also they do still have some kind of serious echoes talking about the idea of having sort of a male gaze, somebody controlling, trying to take over. And in fact, being told not to do something once is enough that it stays in her head. Interesting, this kind of rebellious person being haunted by being told not to do something. I actually have grown to quite like the songs. They're also quite fun and crass, I'm not gonna lie, but there is always some kind of chuckle-worthy appeal when you get a female artist saying phrases like showing up a crack. Oozing character, the backing band is really, really good. They seem to be a cool entity. Everything that comes out of Australia music-wise seems to be amazing, and they are no exception to that, so yeah, You Should Not Be Doing That by Amel and the Sniffers is on there. Moving on to number 6 of 7 to almost done. We have got Dead Stick by King Gizzard and the Wizard Lizard from Phantom Island. That song's so joyous to listen to. It just seems like such fun. I mean, King Gizzard and the Wiz Liz, are one of those bands I've been following for a little while, but they just put out so much gosh darn content that I don't often find myself really being swept away by like large obsessive phases, because it's too much, it's overloading. Like if you want to go back now as a new fan and get to grips with their catalogue, that's a lot of work. I know a lot of sporadic stuff and a couple of albums as they've been coming out, but I really liked the previous album of theirs that came out last year, I'm pretty sure it was, Flight B741. That album is really, really great. A couple of big tracks on that one, you know, like Le Risque specifically, but also Field of Vision was great and a few others. So I like this kind of more recent arc of them going. I mean, to be fair, it almost feels like they've kind of taken like Queen as a big inspiration. They've kind of gone like kind of classic, tongue-in-cheek kind of rock and rolly style, which is really, it suits them down to the ground, and especially some of their vocalists. Goddamn, Ambrose's verse in Dead Sick, especially in the music video where he comes out. I'm just going to play you a clip of it now because it's so great. He's just got such an infectious, like, energy to him. You just want to dance along with him. That verse is, that little breakdown in section is particularly great. But again, I think there's one of the things that really helps King Gizzard. They've got 3 lead singers, so they can just layer those vocals around all the time. You get choruses coming in at the same time that Stu's doing another bit, and then you have that almighty yeah towards the end. Which again, it's just one of those things. If you're driving down the motorway doing 70 and blasting this on full volume, just screech along. I promise you're going to get an endorphin rush there. It's probably not a safe thing to do, but whew, I take it back. Do that while you're in a car park at stationary so you can really enjoy it without being dangerous on the road. But still, fantastic song, fantastic album. I'm still working on a reaction and an album review of some sort. I actually might do that as a collaboration. We'll see. So yeah, stay tuned for slightly more King Gears coverage. We're not finished milking this pony yet. That's definitely not the phrase. Anyways, moving swiftly on to our last track on this album, a band that has taken my imagination and my obsession. It's captured me, and that is President in the Name of the Father. Man, I've gone from being like tentatively interested in President to being like full on obsessed. I've followed the story. I've seen all those conspiracy videos where they figured out it's Charlie Simpson because of the wristband, and his wife and son were like standing at the side of the stage during his download set, and then he also managed to get on a plane and fly and play it as Busted in Hyde Park like that day, which is really impressive. But I've loved seeing the story develop, and I've just obsessed over the kind of imagery as well. It's just so refreshing. I know that masked bands are like definitely on an upswing at the moment. Ghost are still killing it. Sleep Token are one of the most talked about musical acts, full stop, at the moment. Plenty of other bands are still doing it. Slipknot, it's not an original concept, but I don't know, the way that it's so far being executed with President, it's really definitely its own thing. I really, really like the way they're approaching it, especially with the old bait and switch with the fake face reveal, which is like 99% sure not him, obviously. So that stuff is great. And of the 2 songs they've got released at the moment, you've got In the Name of the Father and you've got Fearless. I think I like In the Name of the Father more. I think it's a little bit more unique in its delivery. The screamo is just like so perfectly placed. The way that kind of slow synth heavy intro kind of comes in there, and you just immediately get greeted with this wall of sound, this big, and then you kind of go straight back in there with these kind of like more hip-hop inspired verses that these like kind of completely change it. The guitarist basically, if you see the live video from Download, the guitarist basically doesn't play for the verses in that song. The bassist actually also doesn't do loads. That's one thing I was a little bit disappointed by the live footage, was that obviously there's a lot of backing tracky stuff in there. I don't know whether or not they just haven't got a keyboard player or what it is. But then to suddenly get this chorus that kind of boils down and explodes out, and literally just the way he hits that line, "Can't hear you yet." The way that it boils up into this almost pseudo scream, it's just like the perfect amount of vocal fry. It's just amazing. And then you finally get into this like really proper screamo section at the end. You think you're maybe going to go for another chorus. You get the heavy like guitar breakdown. You get the moment, and then it just ends with this like beautiful kind of all the hearts cut out, and you've just got these harmonies for that last refrain. It's just such a journey. That song is a work of art. I really like Fearless too. I've listened to I think it was 3 other songs that were at the download set, and from the, the terrible camera audio you get, they seem pretty cool. I'm quite excited. In fact, I'm very excited. I'm quite annoyed I didn't get tickets to go see that their London gig, but I have spent quite a lot of money on a t-shirt. I get the feeling In the Name of the Father might well end up being my song song of the year by the end of this one. So, yeah, anyway, allow me to catch my breath for a second. Whew. It doesn't help I'm recording this on a very hot day. Anyway, I think that is all I've got at the moment. Those are my 7 big standout singles that have been, plaguing my brain, my playlists, and my girlfriend over the course of the last 6 months. I'm sure that some of these will probably not make it onto the final one. I'm going to aim for, a sort of top 10, fairly, uniquely. I'm going to do a top 10, I think. So I'm sure that there is going to be space for some shuffling, but we'll have a check back in 6 months on that one. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'm sure that there are plenty of people who've got their own top 7, I guess, singles of this year that will have absolutely no crossover. So let me know in the comments what your top 7 singles are of this year. And if you have any thoughts on the ones that I've brought up, maybe there are different songs by those bands that have been released this year that you preferred. Anything is always good. Let me know. And also let me know if you're interested in a top albums of this year so far, because I've also got a fairly strong opinion on that one too. Other than that, follow me on the social medias. That is always appreciated. Like, share, subscribe, all of that crazy stuff. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.